Coming up on Headline Humboldt, we sit down with Kaylin Rivera from Lost Coast Pride to talk about a recent all-ages Ferndale drag show that was canceled after threatening comments were found on social media, raising concerns for participant safety. Also, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors endorses Life Plan Humboldt, a project to improve the long-term fate and living conditions of local seniors. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. It seems strange to say, but there are times these days when I'm overwhelmed by the news of how American intolerance seems strengthened and pervasive in an era when such sentiments are clearly illogical, unproductive, and hate-driven. At a time when we as a species should be transcending such prejudice to pursue real social equality, we're actually regressing. It's gotten to the point that I no longer recognize my country, at least the country I was brought up to believe in. What can be done? Too often we pin much of our frustration at the state of things on some actor far removed, some public figure or radical agenda that doesn't really represent who or what we are as a society. But today's guest has a story to tell about intolerance in our own community, how an event meant for all ages and intended to strengthen the community was ultimately canceled because of threats received via social media, threats that couldn't be safely ignored given that violent rhetoric and hate-filled intolerance often precede real acts of horrific violence, as we've all learned. Are we as a community okay with this? Is it okay that a hateful few have veto power over what we're allowed to celebrate and who we're allowed to be? Can we be secure as individuals, or must we hide amid the herd to blunt the threat of bad actors? Joining us now is Kaylin Rivera, organizer of the drag show. So let's talk about the sequence of events. You guys were planning to have a drag show at the Old Steeple, which is a music venue in Ferndale, and there was a notice posted on the board of the St. Mark's Evangelical Lutheran Church, and that got posted to social media, and then other comments that were more threatening got posted, and it kind of snowballed. Is that right?
Yeah, so as I'm the executive director of Lost Coast Pride, and so we wanted to fundraise, and the Old Steeple kind of got a hold of us and said, hey, you know, we got a venue here, let's use it, and we got everything just about to the point of being all set up and ready to announce, and then all of a sudden there was an announcement itself saying, you know, beware a drag show for kids coming to Ferndale. And you know, the folks at the Old Steeple had taken a picture, they had shown me, and I posted it up. Only after, well, I posted it up and then
just a picture of yourself, or
no, a picture of the marquee. Actually, I posted it up on Lost Coast Pride social media. And later on that night, because, you know, Paul and Sherry at the Old Steeple had said, well, you know, we're just going to turn the other cheek and we're still going to do this. And then later on that night, I got a phone call or a text message saying, hey, we have to cancel the show. We're getting viable threats. You know, we have kids that do music lessons here, and parents are concerned. And so literally it kind of crushed me at that point, right? You know, because words, as pastors like that know, have an impact, right? And people were, you know, I didn't ever hear the threats or see them, but they were calling for the addresses of organizers. Right. I am the organizer, so it was really viable safety.
And you have a daughter.
Yes, I do. I have an older daughter. I have about 7 grandkids.
Wow.
Right. So, thank you. And so, you know, plus I have, you know, family members and people I consider my family that have children. And so I understand what that's like to want to have the safety of children first. And it just became a whole huge thing on social media of, you know, back and forth, even on the Ferndale community page on Facebook, that it was, well, you know, if you don't, you know, advertise these signs, nobody's going to pay attention. Well, that's privilege right there, because, you know, there are a lot of queer people that live in Ferndale, right? Or they have family members that want to come there or whatever, and nobody feels safe when you have something like that
Yeah.
They don't feel welcome. They don't feel that Ferndale's a place to, or Humboldt County for that matter, is a place to come visit when the intolerance is that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so there's a little bit of a history with the church, right, and the particular pastor. Can you describe how that came about? I mean, there was a Pride Parade 2 years ago that they raised issues with. Is that right?
It was actually there was a Pride March, and it came about in the sense that the sign said, "Hurt by the LGBTQ community will help here." Right, and it came out of nowhere because it was literally Pride Month, and
so they just randomly posted this on their board.
They just randomly posted that, and a bunch of us got to see that, and somebody that I've never met started it as a protest, and you know.
The march.
Yeah, and so it became one of those things where the following year. You know, I was asked 3 weeks before to put on the second one. And in 3 weeks' time, we had over 300 people that marched.
Yeah.
And we had music, we had all sorts of stuff. We had vendors at our festival afterwards. And so it became something that even though this pastor's putting out all this stuff, and he did it all last June too, every week he had something that was anti-LGBTQ, and it just empowered people to gather and come together and make the march a protest, and then have our celebration afterwards of you know, hey, we've gone through and we've been visible, and when we want people to know we're here, now let's celebrate. So it's progressed, and this year it's going to be even bigger.
Yeah.
So.
You know, it's interesting. It's like, and you mentioned this before the show, that even though the intent is to sort of make people in the LGBTQ feel isolated community, feel isolated or alone or judged, but the opposite is ending up happening where there's more you know, solidarity among people, and they're more prone to get out and demonstrate how they feel about it, which is a positive thing.
Right. And it's actually one of those things that I find that's been amazing, and it's not just the queer community that's been coming out. It has literally been allies and businesses and venues, and hey, we'd like to have a show here, we'd like to do this. We've had, like I told you, before the show, I said that we have people from Sacramento, from San Francisco, from Seattle, from Oregon. They're all getting a hold of us and saying, keep up the good work. We stand with you. I think that somebody has, made it their mission to be anti-LGBTQ, but their messages are having the opposite effect of what they want. And if they would just stop doing what they're doing, it doesn't mean we'll go away, but it means that you're no longer the victim as they're being portrayed. They're portraying themselves.
Help me people understand, like seeing that kind of message on a public board, or hearing that kind of whispering or that kind of hate, watching the social media campaigns, or even worse, the sort of broader political campaigns that are going on in places like Florida or Texas, where these kinds of laws are beginning to gain traction. How does that impact somebody like yourself? I mean, how do you feel seeing that, and how what should people understand about its impact on folks?
Well, I think that people don't understand that the impact it has on, the queer community at large is that we're very aggressively trying to be stamped out, right? Like people are really trying to make us go back into a closet that we're never gonna go back into.
Sure.
As for me personally, I transitioned 25 years ago in Reading, and it was ultra conservative then. It's still kind of conservative now.
LaMalfa is the
right. So when I came out, there was no information for me. There was nothing to see or look up, and the internet was relatively new, and so finding information in rural towns is horrible. I mean, now it's social media is different, but back then, so the impact it had on me as far as being able to see stuff, hear things, have something tangible, helped me be the human that I am. And at that point when I came out, I was like, you know, I have to be the person I didn't have. And for me personally, yeah, I know there's potential of me being harmed, my vehicles or property being damaged, or at the very worst being killed for what I do. But that's never going to stop me. And as our LGBT community at large, it's never going to stop us either. The more that you do harm, the more that you kill trans women of color, the more you beat up, the more you call foul names, the more you try to make us go into this little box that you want us to be in, the more we're going to fight and the more we're going to unite.
Yeah, it's tragic that you have to have that level of courage, though, to just to go about your life and celebrate who you are.
Right.
And that's the weight that's on the rest of society, I think, to kind of try to make that better. I don't know how we do that. But, you know, have you ever spoken with the pastor, Tyrell Bramwell, right? Is that his name?
Tyrell Bramwell, no, I haven't. I refuse to, and a lot of it is because I myself personally was raised Baptist and Pentecostal, and I have a lot of religious trauma. I genetically have tested as male, right? So people forget science. They forget intersex people. How do you explain that? How do you say, oh, you're not allowed here, when that's actually something that naturally happens? Genetically, I'm male. My body just decided to not go all the way. So, you know, so I refuse to have a conversation with somebody who thumps his Bible at me and calls me the world's biggest sinner, when they're supposed to be picking that 2x4 out of their own eye, not the toothpick out of mine.
Yeah, and I mean, there was never any effort on his part to reach out to the community or discuss any of this. It's basically just one day he decided to let loose on his little signboard, and this has been the result. We had a story about that issue. Linda Stansberry works with us sometimes, and she did a report on it. One of the things that came out in your comments I've read since all this began is that there's often a misunderstanding of folks about like what the intent is of a thing like a drag show. Can you talk, what is the spirit of an event like that that's contrary to what maybe some detractors might think it is?
Well, you know, having a drag show, and especially one that involves adults, it's for us to be able to express ourselves, just like going to the theater, right? We get to get out, we get to express ourselves, we get to come together as a community. We see our friends, we have family members, we, you know, especially here in like Humboldt County, we don't have a bar, we don't have a resource center, we don't have any of that, to where we can come together and say, hey, you know, we'd like to just have, you know, our own time, our own space. And drag itself is centuries old. And it's just an expression, it's entertainment.
It's clothing.
Right. The only people sexualizing that happens to be the people going, oh, there's a man in a dress, right? They're the only ones sexualizing what's in someone's dress, right?
Absolutely.
Or pants.
It's
never anything, like an adult show can be as sexual as you know, we possibly want it to be. You know, not nudity or anything else, but yeah, we do have our adult shows.
Flirtatious. And,
right,
you know,
and cussing and swearing and, you know, doing our own thing. But for all ages shows, kids don't see anything sexual. You know, they don't. They see somebody dressed all up in this big, huge, you know, costume or all this makeup, and they think, oh, it's you know, somebody performing. And,
exactly. Theatrical, like.
Right. They don't even recognize a lot of the time, unless they're older, that the person in a dress or dressed in as male, as a drag king, they don't even realize that they are, what gender they are. They don't care. You know, they just want the entertainment. They want to have as much fun. It's not grooming children. It's not sexualizing them. It's not, you know, telling them that they can't have, you know, that kind of entertainment themselves, right? Families want to be able to take their children to things like that. Most of the people that come there with their children have given their own consent to take their children somewhere, and that we're the targets of your grooming children, right? Instead of saying, well, you know, I guess parents have their own, you know, authority over their own children, and they do. So, but we're the ones being targeted because we're putting on those performances. But here's the thing, those performances are in demand.
Yeah, well, they're in demand, and you don't have to go. No one has to go. No one's getting their arm twisted and forced to participate in this.
Tying your arm behind your back and saying you now have to take your children to this show. There's nothing about that. Like I said, the only people sexualizing it are the people that really have an issue, and they're the ones that are saying, because they apparently feel that they speak for all children, and they don't. Because we don't pop up at the age of 18 going, hi, I'm queer, right? I knew when I was little I was a boy. So that's just it. People are sexualizing something that, especially for children, isn't even sexual.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and the other thing to me, it seems like, is that, and this, basically these shows and this kind of community event has saved a lot of people's lives, because it gives people a center to understand that they are not the exception, that what they're feeling and how they're living isn't wrong, that there is no right or wrong way to be. And so for a lot of kids who've grown up without that kind of support, I think it can be a vital, life-saving presence in their lives. And instead it gets vilified as this kind of, you know, corrupting force, when in reality, I mean, as anybody who's a parent in these day and age knows that there's more kids coming out as gay or more kids coming out as trans, and they need support. And they're not doing it because it's a fad, they're doing it because they feel like they can finally be free to talk about some of these things. And so it's alarming to me that we can turn something like that is generally so wholesome and turn it into some kind of cudgel. You know?
Well, you know, a lot of folks feel that anything other than religion isn't supporting your family. Right? And I find that, you know, that's a narrow, very narrow mindset. You know, like I said, I was raised Baptist and Pentecostal, and I didn't have any examples. I didn't have any avenues. I didn't know that, you know, the things that I know now were even a thing. And now parents are realizing that their children, you know, are every part of the queer spectrum. Right? And they want to be able to support their children. They want to be able to have that knowledge. Again, science. And if you're going to refer to the Bible, I mean, I know my Bible back and forwards, and I'm a licensed minister, but that's just it. There's never anything in the New Testament about being, there's never a word, the word homosexuality didn't come out until a few decades ago. You know, and there's never anything in there about being gay, and it's like they think that this is now a new trend, and it's queer people have been around for thousands of years.
It's just now maybe they don't feel like they're going to be killed for coming out and saying so. And that's something that we should cherish and encourage as a community or as a country. And it's things like this that make me worry that maybe in some ways we're not, you know? What can we do as a community and as a country to continue moving in that direction and to make churches like this or situations like this either less prevalent or more you know, attract more disapprobation or whatever. Criticism.
You know, I think that one, our community coming together, the queer community itself coming together and uniting and showing our numbers, right? Even, especially here in Humboldt County. Nationwide, we've gotten really good at that, but we've limited it to our Pride in June, and I don't know about anybody else, but my pride is all year round.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I'm trans all year round.
Yeah.
For me, it was, it's that having our community come together united, but it is also our allies, right? Don't hide. Don't be afraid to say something.
Sure.
You know, I had somebody tell me that over the course of the last 2 years that, they were afraid to put their pride flags out in June in Ferndale. And then when I started doing it at my house and for pride and for everything else, other people were, I could put my flag out. And I found, and I found that more allies and more queer people were putting their flags out. Yeah. I think that that's something that we need to keep in mind, right? Whether you're queer or not, fly your flags, fly those flags. Put safe space stickers in your businesses. Put, put rainbow flags in your businesses, your homes. Be an ally. And when I say be an ally, that's not just part-time during, Pride Month. Sure. That is all year round. Be an ally. Show up to these events. Yeah. Show up and support.
Now, one thing I wanted to make sure that, and you mentioned this earlier in our conversation, that this is not all Ferndale. No. This is not the entirety of the community, that there is a small select people who are behind this, but you've gotten, communications of support from other residents of Ferndale.
Oh, yeah, several. And not just part of the Ferndale queer community. It is literally so many people and businesses that have come out and said, hey, we totally support you. We'd like to be part of your events. Yeah. There's more of us there than they think there is, right? I just happen to be the one that's very out and loud about it because I want people to see me, right? Absolutely. Because when someone that doesn't know sees that my pride flags are out, sees that my stickers on my vehicle are all done in either rainbow or trans colors or whatever, I want them to know that they can be themselves in this town. Yeah. So.
One thing that it's a difficult situation because you have this group and they made the organizers of the event feel uncomfortable for not only their safety but the safety of others. So the event gets canceled. How do we come out of this victorious, having folded up the event? I mean, not to say that there was any other decision that could have been made, because I totally get it. But I mean, at the same time, doesn't that let them win? How do we ensure that the ultimate victory comes the other way?
Actually, it didn't let them win.
Okay, good.
Believe it or not. Yeah. So, we now have 2 drag shows.
Okay, good.
Right? We have 2 drag shows. One will be at the Ferndale Repertory Theater.
Okay.
And
is
the
there
other
a date
one,
on that? Or is there a date for that?
There is a date on that. We just haven't signed the contract yet.
Okay, cool.
So,
right on.
Flyers will be going out in the next few days, both social media and printed flyers. Okay. We also have confirmed a April 29th drag show at the College of the Redwoods.
Excellent.
And we also have a silent auction on February 11th at Patches Pastries at the Humboldt County Fairgrounds. Okay. From 12 to 4. Okay. And that is our silent auction. We have had an outpouring of donations, an outpouring of people interested in vending there, people wanting to show up and just be part of their community. The effect of, we've got a drag show canceled, because the next marquee said, praise God, the drag show at the Old Steeple's been canceled. The venue was canceled, not the drag show. So now we have 2 of them. And I've had Humboldt Bay Social Club get a hold of me. I've had several churches get a hold of me. All of them wanting to say, hey, you have a venue here, including Ferndale's own community center.
Well, fantastic. That's all the time we have. So I appreciate it. Give me the information on this stuff. I think you have my email.
Yes.
And I'll be happy to promote it for you.
Awesome. So wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming down.
All right.
Yep. We'll be right back after this short break.
KEET TV is happy to announce that a new season of What's on Your Bucket List will be premiering soon. Please join us as our Bucketeers explore the beauty and color of the Humboldt Botanical Garden. Meet some new friends at the Sequoia Park Zoo. Learn how to make a custom marble. create a psychedelic tie-dye shirt. See how goat cheese is produced at Cypress Grove Chev. Shear a sheep with the Foggy Bottoms boys. Try to stay afloat on a paddleboard in Humboldt Bay. Go fly a kite on a windy afternoon. Experience the native history of Humboldt Bay while cruising on the Matakin. Sing in a rock and roll band and take a speeder ride along the train tracks of the bay. So, what's on your bucket list? What's on Your Bucket List premieres Thursday, February 16th at 7:30 on KEET HD.
Some local seniors could soon age at home with support from neighbors. On Tuesday, county supervisors supported Life Plan Humboldt's intention to develop a community for people 60 and older in McKinleyville.
It will be a combination of independent cottages and apartments, and then we'll provide assisted living level services to people in their homes and memory care all on one campus. And we'll have dining and fitness and wellness center, meeting space, picnic areas, and trails. But we really want to provide a lifelong opportunity for learning and growth and wellness and integrate into the broader community.
The nonprofit hopes to build their $75 million project in that red area on Hiller Road off Central Avenue. Seniors would likely sell their family homes to pay the community's roughly $250,000 to $500,000 lifetime membership fee, and then they would also pay $3,000 to $5,000 a month for rental housing and services, but that's with all services included, so that's important to remember. Organizers say Life Plan Humboldt could counter seniors' isolation and declining health. It would be the only such community within 200 miles, but first the group is trying to raise $2 million in community donations and secure $3 million in state funding. Convicted killer Logan Rain Brewer Hurst, 19, is out of jail today, 3 years and 8 months after he killed Tavon Latimer and shot another man in the leg. Brewer Hurst was sentenced in 2020 to 15 years in a California Department of Juvenile Justice facility. But since his conviction, all those facilities have closed. And recent reform efforts by Governor Gavin Newsom, as well as a decision by the judge in the case to not try Brewer Hurst as an adult, led to his early release. The original shooting has been described as a weed deal gone wrong. Brewer Hurst shot Tavon Latimer 3 times in the back, as well as another man, Latimer's cousin, once in the leg. While he was convicted of an involuntary manslaughter, among other charges, Brewer Hurst was never expected to serve the full 15 years. Under state law, he'd have been released at age 25 or upon being found rehabilitated. But a 2020 prison reform bill called for people aged 14 to 24 who committed serious offenses as minors to be returned to their home counties and either placed in county juvenile halls or released. And then later, a state advisory board since directed his release. Members of Tavon Latimer's family have expressed surprise and frustration at the release, which they found out about last week. Quote, "They gave us 4 days," said Latimer's aunt, Melissa Hall, to the Lost Coast Outpost, "to speak to younger siblings, to accept this as a family, to try to find the peace that we have to in order to coexist with this community, with the offender." Thanks for watching. That's all we have for the week. Stay tuned, stay informed.